Welcome, everybody. My name is Mike Imhanna. I'm the host of today's conversation. Our special guest is Kamal Mouzawak, who is the founder of Souk El Tayeb, Lebanon's first farmers market. Kamal is the son of farmers and producers who grew up in gardens and kitchens, tasting life, food, and land fruits at their source. Kamal followed paths of food and travel writing, teaching macrobiotic cooking, and working as a healthy cooking TV chef, which all led to a more involvement towards social and environmental change and transformation. Kamal, you are a fixture of the food scene in Lebanon and in the entire world, and it is really an honor to have you on the series. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I already told you have to help me in English because I translate from French or Arabic. Fixture شو يعني كرسي أو إجر كرسي؟
لا مش إجر كرسي يعني you are a staple.
طاولة.
You're a طاولة. You're an essential.
Well, everybody is essential, I think, in this because everybody eats, I hope, more than one time a day or at least once a day. So it's something that all of us have to do, and we need to do so to survive and to live. And this is what's interesting about food. Food is like the essence and the start of life. And this is why it's interesting.
Absolutely. Speaking of starts, it's 2021 now. You've been running Souk El Tayeb and Tawlet and a bunch of different things for almost 2 decades. But I want to go back to the 90s, to a moment in time where, as the sort of story goes, you got into a quote unquote gigantic Oldsmobile to tour the country after a civil war. Like a boat. Yes. And I was telling you before the call that I was trying to figure out what Oldsmobile.
It's this one, totally.
Yeah. So I guessed right.
Yes.
But tell me about that. Tell me about that moment, what it was like after the Civil War for you and why you got into this Oldsmobile to sort of tour the country and what you were doing.
I was born in 1969. The war started in 1975. And, the country was divided into different parts and each one had to stick to one part only and you could not go to the other side. And for me, I was a kid, I was an adolescent, and it was always like, don't keep me in one side alone. So I was an adolescent or a kid maybe, and very often crossing from one side of West Beirut to East Beirut, like just to say, like, I cannot stay in one place. I couldn't go further to further regions. And in 1991, it was the end of the war. I was already working. I studied graphic design, never worked on it. In the last years of my studies, there's an amazing man called Lionel Ghurra that I call a big teacher in my life, who started many great things in Lebanon, who created a cultural center in Souk Matbakh in his beautiful old Lebanese house. And we used to have cultural activity every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It was Africa, but of the 1990s, let's say. And people were coming from all over the country, like, someone from Saida, really? Someone from Tripoli? Like, you're coming for like a concert or a poetry reading? Amam Janine Holi. So it's something that taught me a lot in life, the importance of having a common interest, a common ground, and how we can all come together in a time and a place, around this, thing that is this commonality between us. So after that, someone asked me to write a guidebook about Lebanon, and I took my car. It was my car. It was old by that time too. I had it because it was a cheap car. It was a very comfortable, beautiful car, very difficult to drive because very big car. And I traveled this country that I heard about, but never visited, like you go to Baalbek that I heard of, or, like, I'm sure you're much younger than me. So when we were like kids, like parents, yes, we used to go to Baalbek and come in the evening or go eat all these cliches, go eat in Sarafan, and then come back. So it was like things we heard of, or I heard of and never knew or visited. And I was like discovering this country, and I discovered an amazing country Not because of its touristic or historical places, but mainly amazing people, all around. And discovering the country through the people who were all the same, And as I always say, if you come to people with open arms, they have wider arms. If you come quarreling, they would quarrel and fight more than you. So this is how I started discovering Lebanon and understanding, because for me, it's always like, I'm very curious, and it's about like, why is this like this? So it's more of an anthropological approach, of understanding things. And it was the start of an adventure to discover this country I was from, but I didn't know. And I don't know if you know it better today, because I think we're still, each one is in his own compartment or region, even if you can go to other places.
Kamal, let me ask you a question. So there's this quote that I took from some interview you gave. In a country as divided as Lebanon, nothing can bring people together as much as the land and the food.
You need common grounds. What is the common ground? What is the common ground? Our skin color may be different. We all have the same skin color. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of diversity. Our politics may be different between both of us. Our religion may be different, and all of these are reasons to quarrel and to fight. But there is one thing that brings us really together. You know what? We are living on the same land that is doing the same agriculture, and we're doing the same cuisine out of it, all of us. And even if your kibbeh in the south is different from my kibbeh in the north, it's okay. This difference is a diversity and a richness, It's something that is rich, And I would just say, like, tfaddal. So come and share this diversity, and not put the differences between both of us as something, as a wall to fight or to divide us.
Did you have, when you went on this sort of guidebook tour, was food, before you started, was food a part of it?
No, it wasn't part of it. I came to food little by little, but I have always been attracted, to food, and I have always been very much attracted to the metamorphosis. How you throw a stupid seed in soil with a little bit of water, and it's transformed into a plant, and the plant will bear fruit. And then from another side, how you took like simple, stupid ingredients, and you metamorphose them, into a dish or so. This metamorphosis, always impressed me a lot. And when I was a kid, like, this is like the stories that everybody likes. I have a story for you. I don't have much, like the aha moments that people like. I don't remember my childhood, or, like, people sometimes remember every detail of their childhood. But I just remember once, like, I said, like, I'm going to make a cake. And I used always to do what I wanted to do, And it was like, okay, you need flour and egg and sugar and the tin, and fire, So I took, I was a kid, like, I took an empty tuna tin, and I put like an egg and sugar and, I don't know, milk or flour, whatever, and I put it on the fire, and it burnt, obviously, and I didn't understand why it didn't. I didn't have a cake. So it's this metamorphosis that impresses me a lot.
So I want to talk a little bit about a move on to the early 2000s.
Yes.
And so you had the travel writing turned into food writing, turned into being on TV in a sort of a food show world. So you started getting into that world.
Mm-hmm.
But that path usually leads to celebrity chef, right? That's not the path you took.
I'm not a celebrity chef. I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not.
No, but you get
the celebrity chef is very much around what he or she does. I do nothing at all. I'm part of the team. Jamie is here on this. In this session, she's in charge of our communication. We celebrated today 400,000 meals at Matbakh al-Kil. I did nothing at all. It's my partner, Christine, who leads this with an amazing team. It was Laura and Stephen and an amazing team. So And mainly the cuisine itself, it's not about, what I will do and always about, like, I'm going to make it better, there's this, but I'm going to make it better. No, it's just a simple cuisine of, هيدي محلي وجميلة يعني it's just what your grandmother or your mother how they perpetuated كيف الرجال mainly how men mainly perpetuated the tradition as of agriculture, men and women but mainly men, and how women in the kitchen perpetuated the tradition as of cuisine. So it's just I'm just catching some story to how do you say, like with a haut-parleur, to amplify it, and I'm just helping. I don't like the word helping. We are just, me and all of the team are just providing a platform for the producer to sell, promotion for them, for the cook to cook and have someone to eat her food. That's all. So it's not at all about me. What I do, I always remember whenever I had like to speak, like now, or I say like, can I speak as good as Georgina as Kibbe Queen today? Suzanne was our first Kibbe Queen, and I always had the image in my mind, seeing Suzanne doing a Ors Kibbe, and saying like she does it perfectly. Am I speaking as good as she's doing her Kibbe? Each one has a job. So this is my job. Your job is an interviewer. My job is the answerer, So each one has a job. And like, am I doing good enough my job? As in Islam, they say each act is an act of adoration. So it's about how we are all performing, Are we performing good enough? And this is the way to pray or to adore, whatever you want to adore.
When you and the team launched Souk El Tayeb in 2004, were your sights set on this idea of cutting out the middleman and creating this entire ecosystem and trying to build out a platform? Or were you really thinking small, solving your own problem? What was the thinking at the time? I'm going to, just for the audience know, I'm going to just cycle through some photos for people to have something to look at, but please go ahead.
There was no thinking at all, Mikey, at all. There was just doing. And by doing, it was like, okay, there's this wonderful producer, he or she is doing an amazing job, but who wants tomato in Tomato Village? Like everybody has the same, So how can we bring him or her to where there's a demand and the purchasing power? So to the city, how can we do what they do not know how to do? Like, get a place, organize the market itself, to the promotion, whatever it is, So it was just doing. It was never thinking. We never had like a strategy. Now I can put words to cutting the middleman and all of this. But before it was like, it was just doing without thinking, like throw yourself in the water and then you learn how to swim later on. Obviously, this is not something that was sustainable. So I did this for 4 years and after that, it was like, oof, wow, that's very heavy. I cannot continue like this. And this is where I said, like, I need help. So it's very important to understand your limits and your capacity. And at one point say like, okay, guys, now I cannot do it alone anymore, or I don't know how to do it. So this is where a common friend introduced me, Christine Kotsi, who's my partner now. And Christine used to be a business consultant. And Christine came and said, like, I'm going to handle this case as a regular business consultancy. And I never heard about a business consultant before. I have never seen a PowerPoint before. I've never seen an Excel sheet of my life. And even until today, if I see an Excel sheet, I'm afraid, it's going to bite me, all these cells that change alone, like this amazes me until now, like it's amazing.
There's your metamorphosis for you.
Oh my God, how can they change? Like I throw the computer, like, no, I'm not going to touch it. And so this is where Christine came in 2008 and did like like a proper consultancy, and we transformed this personal initiative into an institution. And from there, she came in early 2009. She joined as a partner, and we started developing the institutions, the farmers market. We had Tawlet on November 9. We started Tawlet on November of that same year. So this is how it evolved.
So I want to talk about Tawlet. I'm glad that you brought it up. So in your mind, Tawlet is just an extension of the idea, right?
It's not an extension. It's different expression of one idea. You know, we started with the farmers market. It was about supporting small-scale farmers and producers, bringing the farmer from rural to urban, where there's a demand and the purchasing power. But then I'm very nostalgic about these images. This is the old Tawlet and the first Tawlet. So then it was about like, why do I bring the farmer from rural to urban? Why don't I go to visit him or her in his or her own environment in the village? In 2007, we started doing what we called Aklu Eid, or food and feast, and it was like food festivals around typical food or ingredient of that village or region, Karas Hamena or Kibbet Ehden. So when we go to these regions, it was about a typical farmers market, you know, historical or eco visits, and at the same time we're going to eat what we're going to eat, not restaurant food. We're going to eat typical food. Who does this typical traditional food? It's a woman at their own houses. So each lady, we started identifying cooks, and each cook was coming with her typical dish. These lunches started to have a big success. This is where we said, like, why do we need to have like once a year these regional lunches? Why can't we have them in a more reachable place, which means in Beirut, and on a more regular term, daily? So this is how Tawlet was created in November in 2009, where every day a different woman from a different region or village would come and do a full buffet of her typical food. When we started Tawlet in Beirut, we said, like, why do we do only a national Tawlet for women from all over Lebanon to come to this Tawlet? Why don't we go to regions and like start doing regional Tawlets, like Tawlet Leb'a Bi-Hami, Tawlet Sayda, Tawlet in each different region. And when we started going to the regions, it was about like, why do we go only to the regions to eat? Why can't we benefit more from the hospitality and sleep in the region? So this is where in 2015, the project of Beit, the communal homes, started. And all along, it was about supporting small-scale farmers and producers and cooks, you know, in doing better what they were doing. So this is where we created what we called a capacity building program to help farmers and producers and cooks do better what they were doing.
Do you feel like, I mean, hearing you talk about this, I feel like you are trying to recreate an opportunity for somebody like me to have that 1993 Oldsmobile experience?
No, it's you come back to ego, Mikey. It's not about ego. I don't care about recreating my experience, and I don't care at all about you. You know,
or not my experience, my
Oldsmobile experience, or you as a consumer. You know, both you as a consumer, I don't care about you, and me as my experience, it's my experience. No one has to do with it. For me, the most important thing was, you know, if you have a jewel as a tradition, you know, as a dish, as a traditional architecture, whatever it is, if you have a jewel, don't throw it away. And if you don't want to throw it, how to perpetuate it? By using it, you know, not perpetuate it by putting it in a glass jar in a museum on a shelf, you know, no, by using it, you know. If frike, I'm not from the South. I never heard of frike in my life. You know, at one point it was like very fancy, expensive dinners to have, let's say, saumon or like something Occidental. You know, now if there's now or before, like it's the frike, the most traditional thing, got to be like the most trendy or fancy thing, let's say. So this is perpetuating existence by demand. Yeah. So this is what's important, the frike, you know, our traditions, and not the consumer experience called Mikey or Kamal's, you know, nostalgia. It's not about us. It's about a wealth this country has made by its own people along centuries. and how to perpetuate it, you know, in a livable way.
If speaking of the food and the sort of traditions, let's say how much sort of experimentation goes on in the kitchen. Let's say, you know, one of the chefs from Saida comes to you and says, Kamal, my frika is very different.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do it my way. It's not the traditional way. I'm known to do it this different way.
Mm-hmm.
Is there sort of
Mikey, you see the picture?
Yeah.
That's a maghli.
Yeah.
I eat a maghli that is, you know, liquid, thick, but look at this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely thick. So this is the way they do maghli in Saida. Take another thing, let's say kibbeh nayyeh. It's an example I always use. Kibbeh nayyeh in the north is only goat meat, white pepper, salt, وحتى there's not even onion in it. You know, when Suzanne's mother was not from Zgharta, used to put a little bit of grated onion, it was like a blasphemy. You know, نزعت الكلمة. Okay, you go to the south, but
it's okay, don't worry.
The woman goes out to her garden, because you obviously live in a garden, you know, because you're a human being, you're a living creature, you know, so you need nature, you know, and the garden. So the woman goes out and does a picking, tahwishe, shake. What does she pick? Everything she has in the garden. Roses, wild mint, marjoram, ورق ليمون, lemon leaves, all of this. She grinds this with the burgul, and the burgul takes like a phosphorescent color and cumin, obviously, and she adds this to the kibbeh nayyeh. Okay. Look at the man and their characters. The man, I mean, with the humans, you know, in the north, very harsh. Look at the nature. It's very, very harsh, like strong, high cliffs. Look at the nature in the south, very soft and round. Look at the character of the people in the south. So this is their kibbeh, and this is the kibbeh of the north, and this is the kibbeh of the south. So it's always a perfect expression of the land, of the place, of the traditions, and of the history. Nothing speaks of you. You're wearing a white t-shirt and wearing a blue t-shirt, right? So it's not our costume. We don't perpetuate our identity, neither by our costume, nor by architecture, neither by dance, you know, or singing. We may understand it if we are both from the same country. Other people would look at it as folkloric or ridiculous, or just don't understand it, don't get it. But, you know, the most sincere expression of roots, history, and tradition is food. The expression that travels the most around time and place, you know, Lebanese are 3 times more abroad than in Lebanon. They didn't take the shirwel, the costume, or the architecture, or the zajal, the singing and the dancing, or the poetry with them. They only took tabbouleh and kibbeh and different forms of kibbeh nayyeh and of mjaddara from the south, from the north. So it's an expression of my identity, my roots, and my history. And this is what's important about it.
I love it. I'm curious, Kamal, I couldn't agree more. I appreciate the strong opinions. I'm curious, over the course of the years, what do you think that you and your team have sort of been surprised by over the course of opening these new places and expanding your work and the number of people you get to learn from? What have you sort of learned over the years that may have surprised you?
For me, always discovering amazing people. For me, it's always a people's project, because, you know, for me, a country doesn't exist. Beirut don't exist. What is Beirut, Mikey? What is Beirut? It's just a flat land, right? Or it's just a land where people came, made something out of it, built something, gave it a name, right? So Beirut is the Beiruti, Lebanon is the Lebanese. So what amazes me always is the people themselves, what amazes me always is, how we always start with like, no, we do nothing special. We do macaroni blahme, and the tabbouleh and hummus. And you start, grating a little bit and like asking a little bit more. And they start remembering and they start being less ashamed of what is very traditional, and we start discovering the very typical expressions of that region. So I think that's it, and how every region can tell a wonderful different story, and how it can be a conversation between a region and another. And it's never a competition, it's from the mountain, it's rustic, it's not sophisticated. Yes, so what? Why? Because sophisticated is a good thing. Like if it's a small kibbeh, it's better than so it's different expression, it's different forms. And, this is what is quite amazing about it.
So I couldn't agree more. I wonder, right now you're in Paris,
Yes.
and I'm curious how this sort of feels as an extension when you sort of, you just mentioned it, there's a 3-to-1 ratio of Lebanese outside Lebanon, inside of Lebanon. And so Lebanon isn't only a physical place, right? It's a place that can be stretched to a bunch of different places at a bunch of different times. A few weeks ago, we had Linda Jacobs on talking about the Syrian colony in Manhattan in the 1880s all the way to 1900. That at that point, that tiny little block of what is now Wall Street and the West Village was one of the most Lebanese places in the world. And so how do you feel like it extends to a place like Paris or a place like London or a place like Detroit, when you think about those communities and those people?
I don't agree. Lebanon is a place, which is Lebanon. And, Linda Jacobs took, part of Lebanon and part of Syria to what's called the Little Syria, like the Levant. So you start with that, and then you take that somewhere else. You take that elsewhere. But, when, the original place disappears, how much more can you take and for how long, So I think the original place is very, very important to nurture because it's the origin of everything in a way.
Okay, interesting. So for you, it's inextricably linked to the actual land.
Yes, they do the Lebanese as in Lebanon, because when they go to Manhattan, they transform it into something else. And, like the Italian cuisine in America is not Italian cuisine. It's American Italian cuisine, so it's not Italian anymore. I'm not saying it's better or worse, I'm not judging. Yeah. It's different because it's adapted to the country, to the ingredients, to the climate, and to the taste. So it's something else. So Akid, it's linked to, for sure, it's linked to the origins. And this is what angers me a lot today, because with catastrophic situation in Lebanon today, we are less linked to the original land, and the original land can host and produce and inspire much less than before. And this is a major catastrophe of today's problems in Lebanon, where the original land can host and inspire less than before.
Okay, so I would be remiss not to talk about this. As somebody who lives in Lebanon and tries to run a team and an organization out of Lebanon, the challenges are overwhelming, right? The team I'm trying to run is maybe a team of 5. You have a team much larger than 5. So I think there'd be a lot of people who'd be interested in understanding what some of those challenges are for running a organization that touches so many people, that has so many people, both as consumers, but also producers and partners and vendors. What are some of the challenges right now for those listeners who don't really know?
Well, it's survival. It's mainly survival. So when we get into survival mode, it's completely different. As also farmers market, we're trying to, we do our best to have our market every week, because the week where we'll not have the market is the week where the producers will not make an income, and this is what they live from. And we closed mainly most of our tawlets and have mainly the one in Beirut today. We closed most of our baits and have the Beit Duma only functioning today. And we created a new project, which is a community kitchen, a soup kitchen, where we produce between 1,000 and 2,000 meals a day to distribute to the neediest. And today we were like, I don't know if I can say celebrating, but producing 400,000 meals. And in my opinion, that's the worst project we ever did, because like this is a project where we're giving charity. And personally, I'm completely against charity, but unfortunately, this is what we have to do in times of emergency. And I'm against charity for one thing, because, you know, by charity, you make the other dependent. And by making the other dependent is taking the most important asset that someone has, which is his freedom. So we need to acknowledge that, you know, things change. And by acknowledging this, you know, we need to adapt and to create something new. So this is why we stopped most of our project. And this is why we're preparing for early 2022 new projects that are adapted to the situation, not creating bait of our own, but helping farmers and producers to have their own.
Okay, so before we get to the single ingredient, I'd love to talk a little bit about what you what feedback you've gotten from some of the farmers and some of the cooks over the years. How long are people involved? Like, for example, like, what is the typical experience of a farmer who is involved with Souk El Tayeb, or a cook who's involved with one of the Tawlet? Are they working for 5-6 years, the same people, or is it sort of a larger group sort of people that are just constantly shuffling in and out?
You know, very often it's a day or a life. You know, in a day it breaks, and, you know, like, we don't match, let's say, or it's for a lifetime. Very often people grow, and like Souk El Tayeb is like too small, or Tawlet is too small for them, and we're very happy for that. And what impresses me and touches me a lot in this family is that people are able to meet and to talk and to know each other where they couldn't meet before, because they are from different regions or backgrounds or politics or whatever it is. And I think the best, like, I love this picture because it's what I'm talking about. This is Zahra, who has the black veil in the image up left. You know, Zahra is a daughter of Ali. Ali is one of our first producers. She's a wonderful baker. And this is her daughter now that is doing the same jobs, that took her mother's job in a way. So when I see the kids, you know, doing the same and not being ashamed to do so, and doing it even better than their parents, or the kids, you know, that could afford studies because of their parents' job. So I think that's the best reward.
Okay, amazing.
So it's not about, you know, a customer, Mikey, who came and had a good lunch at Tawlet, or was it's not about this. It's about the people who are doing it. So obviously it must be good food at Tawlet for people to come, and good produce at Souk El Tayeb for people to buy. Obviously, I'm not saying the contrary, but it's about building better people by the end of the day.
Can I ask a little bit of a sort of a cheeky question about this?
You can, but
you can be a cheeky responder. So Kamal, on that note, like, how do you think, just as I understand what you're saying, and I can relate to it, but you as Kamal and the rest of your team, how do you sort of judge yourself? How do you think about, oh, we're doing a good job, we're not doing a great job? What are some of the things that you think about? Like, how do you sort of grade yourself and get a sense of, yeah, we're doing good, or no, we need to get better at this? Like, what are some of the things that you think about?
I think by, first of all, seeing the producers at the farmers market, how good they are doing, and if they are doing better than before, not only as of money, as of on all levels, you know, in their practices. By seeing our team, which is very important, as I already said, you know, and the cook, it's just, are we evolving or not?
Okay.
And Obviously, you look at figures later on, because if you're doing a good job, we must, into brackets, sell it well too. So are the producers selling better, more? I mean, do we have more people at Tawlet? Are people coming enough to abate? So obviously figures count too.
Okay, great. All right, so as part of every episode of Matbakh, we ask the guests to choose either an ingredient, a dish, a recipe, or a process to talk a little bit about. And I asked you, Kamal, and you said tabbouleh. Tell us why you chose this single ingredient.
Because it's my favorite dish. And I hate calling it salad, or appetizer, or I don't know what. It's a dish, and it's a symbol of Lebanon for me. It's a symbol of party. There's no party without tabbouleh. There's not a Sunday lunch without tabbouleh. There's no summer without tabbouleh. So it's very festive. And because I love it, I adore it. And, one of my friends, Antoine Daher, once wrote an article, because we used to do like the Tabbouleh Day or Tabbouleh National Day or something like that. And he wrote an article once explaining that tabbouleh is an image of Lebanon, because when you look at the tabbouleh, when you look at the salad, look at the salad. Thank you for the picture. It's perfectly chosen. You see, I told you we don't have to prepare. It's all going to come right. Look at the salad on the bottom left. I always have to think left and right because I don't know. You can see this, the lettuce. You can see في بقلة أو رقة, the tomato, and you can separate one ingredient from the other, right?
Yeah.
On the contrary, in a tabbouleh, you see all the different ingredients. Even the smallest part of onion, you can see it, but you can never separate an ingredient from the other. All together make a tabbouleh, and you cannot take off one ingredient from all the others. And for him, it was an image of Lebanon. We are this diversity and this mixity of different people, different origin, different religion. All of us together make something called Lebanon, and you cannot take one out of the mixture because it's not going to be called tabbouleh or Lebanon anymore. So that's why I love tabbouleh.
Do you feel like there is a single correct way of making a tabbouleh?
Akid. There are rules. And I wrote the 10 commandments of tabbouleh. So in the 10 commandments of tabbouleh, it says it doesn't have shrimp. It says it doesn't have couscous. Like when you go abroad, like you can buy tabbouleh in a pack in the supermarket. It's like all couscous, with not even parsley, and it's dried, and you have to rehydrate it with hot water. It's like, I tear my hair. Like call it whatever you want. It's nice. I'm not being judgmental, but don't call it tabbouleh. You cannot mix a tabbouleh, but before just eating it, you cannot season it and put the olive and the lemon, but just before eating it, because it's going to start cooking. You don't chop the Occidental way a tabbouleh, and like you chop over the parsley, and it blackens and it gets its juices out. But you have to slice it very thinly, slice one time and not once. So I'm very, very, religious about tabbouleh. Don't ask about tabbouleh.
So
it must be always fresh. It must always be lemony. I always like it with a little bit of hot pepper, har akhdar, green hot chili, because it's summer, and when you eat it, it has to like awaken your taste buds, like, yummy,
So what is the cardinal way, or what is the surefire way that you can tell if a tabbouleh is not great?
So tabbouleh is not great?
Yeah, like you sit down, you're at a restaurant, you order a tabbouleh, or you're at somebody's house, they bring you a tabbouleh. What is the most common mishap? Not the shrimp and the stuff like that. Like
it shouldn't, not the Occidental things that say we are at tabbouleh in different places in Lebanon. Yeah. It shouldn't be cooked. By cooked, I mean seasoned a long time ago and welted, you say in English, the blene. So this is one thing. It shouldn't have... it should have like the acidity of lemon. I don't like pomegranate molasses that remain in it because it's a lot of flavor. It doesn't need so many velvety flavors, just need acidity. So verjus, sharab al-husrum, mumkin, but still it's a bit thick as of taste. For me, lemon is like the lightest and the more acidic, and it's and definitely no very smelly peppers. I use only a very small quantity of bahar halo, regular pepper, so black pepper, or I think it's called in English allspice, which is one spice but called allspice. So just a little bit to rub the onion, and the onion is the only ingredient in a tabbouleh which should be, into brackets, cooked, like welted. Yeah. All others should be like, fresh and not welted at all, and onion should be the only one. Better if it's green onion, obviously, or white onion.
Perfect. I love strong opinions.
For me, it's not a strong opinion. It's truth, and that's it and nothing else.
Yeah. All great, strong opinions.
This is what everybody thinks. Every dictator is going to tell me things that, this is truth. It's not my opinion. So
there's the classic T-shirt that says, "I'm not opinionated. I'm just always right."
But you agree about tabbouleh, Mikey?
I do.
I ate a cooked tabbouleh yesterday. It was like, oh God.
I'm glad you didn't cancel the interview. I'm glad that you made it through the experience.
I had time, to get over it.
The shock. Deb, we're going to do 4 quick questions and then open it up to the audience.
Okay.
The first question is, what are you reading or watching right now?
I don't read much. I don't watch much. When I'm in a doing process, and I'm in a doing process now for Tawlet Paris, I'm very, very focused on what I do. Like I had to go for a weekend tomorrow, for instance. And like, for me, it's too much info. Like I cannot process. I like to focus on what I'm doing. I don't go to an exhibition. I go out, I see friends. Obviously, I'm not saying like I'm secluded, but like I'm very focused.
You don't want to take in more information.
No, I don't want to take more information. My head doesn't, I have a limited quantity of data, what do you say, bytes.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Who would you love to shadow for a day, past or present?
A mother or a grandmother, caring about her family, her children, and loving them through feeding them.
In any specific decade or location?
My grandmother, maybe, that I never cooked with.
I read in an interview about you that you said that she had a famous kitchen.
My grandmother?
Yeah. Or maybe not famous, or like legendary kitchen, like that she was a legendary chef, chef or cook.
No, not that. Oh, ya haram, not my grandmother. She was a very, very humble person. No, it's not me.
Interesting. Okay. I don't mean humble, not humble in terms of actual fame, but that she was this incredible cook. That's what I meant.
Yeah, she was an incredible cook, but like this is how we love each other.
Yeah.
By telling you haven't eaten enough, you have to put more food. This means like, because by feeding you, what I'm doing? I'm perpetuating life in you. And how can I perpetuate life in you if I don't love you? So that's food. It's nothing else than that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Kamal, what is your guilty pleasure midnight food choice?
Midnight? When is midnight? I don't know. I sleep very early.
You wake up in the middle of the night, you get home late.
Abadan. Never. I sleep at 9 or 10 and I wake up at 5. So midnight doesn't exist for me.
Okay, your guilty food choice.
My guilty food choice, fried chicken.
Made any specific way?
And I love shawarma, but it's not very guilty. But like fried chicken is no.
Okay. Do you like it? Do you like spicy? Do you like spice with it? Do you like heat with it or no?
Not necessarily. No, I like the stupid Lebanese way of the roasted chicken. Even I like the crispiness outside and the moist and tender white flesh inside. I like this combination.
Yeah, with the French fries. Okay.
أكيد.
Okay.
وإذا في توم أحسن أكيد ولو إذا في توم if there is garlic and French fries, I forget about the chicken, and I only if there is French fries and toom garlic, puree cream or whatever you call it, I have to eat. I have to finish all the quantity, and then I move to something else.
Okay, great. What dish reminds you most of home?
Sunday tabbouleh أكيد.
Sunday tabbouleh.
11 a.m. when my mother cuts parsley أكيد, because you cut the parsley from your garden. You don't buy parsley, So بتجم المسكبة إذا بتعرف شو يعني أنت بالعربي, or it's too ضيعة for you. So في مسكبة means the square where you plant parsley. So بتجمع يعني بتقص, and it's like on a paper, on a jaride, on a newspapers, and it's here, and you have to do the bouquet and then wash them and then dry them and then start cutting. So it's a whole ritual, and for me that's a Sunday.
So that is the perfect answer. Very ritualistic. We are going to have Marianne. You're up first. Anyone else want to type in their questions? Go ahead, Marianne.
Hi, Kamal. I actually had the pleasure of staying at Beit Duma with my daughter, which was one of the most memorable cuisine and staying experience I've had. And it was
it touches me a lot, and I miss it a lot.
I bet you do. I have, of course, those of us that are outside of Lebanon are watching in a kind of heartbreaking way the circumstances in the country. And I'm wondering if you are having different kinds of conversations about adapting food when there's scarcity. Are the ingredients changing? Are the approaches to making various meals changing? Or is it something that you feel is just leveled out and isn't being affected?
Well, it's obviously affected, Marianne. Today, let's say pine nuts are more important than gold, and you don't dream anymore of buying pine nuts or having them on your table. And obviously it's affected. We don't live in a bubble. You eat less meat, and even if you have the means to buy meat, you don't know if it has been properly cooled, during all the process. So it definitely changed a lot, yes.
Well, thank you. And I'm starving listening to you.
Tabbouleh time. Tabbouleh. I have a tabbouleh waiting for me in my fridge anyway.
Please don't tell me that.
Well,
thank you.
Yes. Join in.
Thanks, Marianne. Kamal, just to piggyback on this while I have Margie unmute herself, just how do you suspect that food sort of may change in Lebanon over the next 5 years, given the situation that inshallah improves, but if it does improve, it's going to improve slowly? How do you think sort of food is going to change, and are there other traditions, older traditions, that may be coming back?
First of all, it's going to be less colorful if we're going to be in the same situation. So it's going to be less colorful because, food is an expression of your life. So more cooked, less colorful. And, when we cared about details before, as of the taste or of the provenance of the ingredients or their quality, at one point we're going to care only about the price and availability or not. So, and that's a lot to lose, a lot.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
But we're losing more important things. We're losing people's life and people's dreams. So, it's not only crying about this.
Yeah, we have to keep it in perspective. Okay, Margie, go ahead.
I love your story of what you're doing in Lebanon. What can we do outside of Lebanon to help the farmers and the cooks? I mean, we can certainly tell your story and repeat it on, social media, in our personal conversations, but it doesn't really help the people in Lebanon. So what do we do?
I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Margie.
Margie, I hate help. Because, no. because by helping, you help someone that is less than you. And unfortunately, yes, you are right, we need help today, but which means that we are getting to be less than others. And this is the biggest loss, in my opinion. You know, when we were on the same level and we were conversing together, now I'm on a lesser level and I'm saying like, I'm dependent on you, I need you. If you don't help me, I will not survive. And that's a huge problem.
But it's not so much that, maybe help is the wrong word, but how can we partake of what the farmers and the cooks are offering? I mean, these things are wonderful, and I want
it's very
to eat
easy. The cooks don't need help. I insist again, you know, or the farmers or anyone, because they are producing some things that are extraordinary, you know, but they just need not to be, you know, stolen from and raped continuously. So the only way where you can help is break the system that is raping us all and stealing us all. And this is a real help. Any other help would be just a band-aid.
Okay.
Great. Kamal, let me ask a slightly separate question. How can folks who don't live in Lebanon right now enjoy some of this stuff, enjoy some of the food that we're talking about?
We should start exporting more from Lebanon. We're creating ourselves Dukkane, which means grocery in Arabic, you know, where we're going to start selling online. We're starting a Dukkane in Paris to sell in Paris. And Paris project as a Tawlet, as a kitchen, and as a grocery shop, as a Dukkane, is a pilot project to take elsewhere. So I think buy more from the country. But then again, this country and the producer should be export ready, which is not the case yet. So it's quite complicated. It's not, you know, as easy as an internet session, let's say.
Okay, well, Kamal, I'll end the way I started by saying I really admire your work as somebody who's trying to make a life in Lebanon and build a business, an organization there, and that's really based on people. I really admire you, and I thank you for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you.
To all of you who are on the call, please give us feedback. I put it in the chat. It's a simple question. Was this good? Let us know if you think it was good or how to make it better. This conversation will show up on our YouTube page and on our podcast in a few days. Please share it with folks who you think may be interested. We have a whole slate of events next week. If you happen to be in New York next week, I'm going to be interviewing musical artists on stage at Joe's Pub as a part of Habibi Fest. It's going to be a really fun 4-day music festival with some really incredible musicians. So go to the website, you can read all about it. And thank you all for joining.
Thank you for this opportunity.